Today we are going to walk slowly, step by step, through Malta's buried history. Not just the grand temples or the fortified cities, but the quieter, more human spaces, cemeteries, tombs, and burial grounds that tell the story of the people who once lived here. Our journey will not jump from century to century in a blur. Instead, we will explore the landscape site by site, watching as it changes, sometimes dramatically, sometimes subtly, over 2,000 years. Part 1. Marsa, from Roman port to Muslim cemetery. Marsa, today a busy harbor area, was already an important maritime zone in ancient times. The first written glimpses we have of Marsa's ancient remains come from the 16th century, when the French cleric Quentin d'Auton, writing in 1536, described a mole, a great harbor wall, and the ruins of old buildings. For many years, people assumed he meant Valletta, but careful reinterpretation of his words shows that he was almost certainly speaking of Marsa. Even then, the bones of an older city were visible beneath the surface. In 1647, the historian Giovanni Francesco Abela confirmed the existence of these ruins. He described large squared ashlar blocks forming a wall in the sea. Imagine standing there almost 400 years ago, looking into the clear harbor water and seeing huge stone blocks, the remains, he thought, of a Roman breakwater. Abela even speculated that this was the site of the ancient port. By the early 18th century, the evidence was undeniable. Count Giovanni Antonio Barbero, an antiquarian and military engineer, discovered massive stone foundations on the waterfront. These were not mere walls. They were the substructure of large warehouses, structures that would have stored goods arriving by ship. We know them in Roman terms as Horia. These finds confirmed that Marsa had been an active commercial hub in Roman times. The 1874 discovery, a Roman burial complex. Fast forward to 1874. Excavations at Jesuits' Hill, not far from the harbor, uncovered a burial complex unlike anything else known in Malta at the time. Over 50 tombs were cut into the bedrock. The graves were rectangular, some with niches or chambers. The style matched other Roman cemeteries around the Mediterranean, and dating evidence placed them in the 2nd to 3rd centuries AD. It is unusual to find a cemetery so close to industrial and port facilities, but this was not unheard of in the Roman world. In fact, it mirrors a pattern seen in port cities such as Ostia, where life, commerce, and death were not separated by great distances. People lived and died within earshot of the sea. Unusual dolia burials. Among the finds were dolia, massive ceramic storage jars, taller than a person. In the Roman port, these would have held grain, wine, or oil, but here some had been reused as burial containers. This practice, rare but documented in other Mediterranean ports, was likely a pragmatic choice. Dolia were strong, plentiful, and sealed easily. To modern eyes, it may seem strange, but to the people of the time, it was simply another way to lay a loved one to rest. The catacomb clues. During 1960s construction work near the Marsa power station, workers broke into underground chambers. Archaeologists identified them as possible catacombs or rock-cut storage facilities. Though much was destroyed, these discoveries hinted that Marsa's burial grounds were more extensive than the Jesuits' Hill site alone. 21st century evidence. In 2005, rescue excavations during the construction of a storm water channel uncovered fragments of Roman road surfaces, scattered pottery, and the foundations of substantial stone buildings. These were industrial in character, probably tied to the port's storage and processing of goods. The proximity of these facilities to the burial areas again reinforces the image of Marsa as a bustling, tightly packed urban maritime zone. The Muslim cemetery of 1675. As centuries passed, Marsa's role shifted. By the 17th century, the area was granted by Grand Master Niccolo Cottner to Malta's Muslim community, in particular to Turkish slaves and traders. The year was 1675, and a dedicated cemetery was laid out here. When excavated, the graves told a consistent story, bodies laid on their right side, all facing southeast toward Mecca, and no grave goods at all. These are classic markers of Islamic burial tradition. The cemetery remained in use until the mid-19th century. When the land was redeveloped, the remains were moved to a new site, the Turkish military cemetery at Ta Samet, built in 1873-74 in an ornate neo-Ottoman style by the architect Emanuel Luigi Galizia, a gift from Sultan Abdul Aziz. Part 2. Rabat and Mdina, from Roman villa to Muslim cemetery. Traveling inland to Rabat, we find another site where Malta's layered history is written in stone, the Domus Romana. The Roman Domus. This was once a luxurious townhouse, built for a wealthy Roman family. Its discovery in 1881 was pure accident. Workers planting trees at Howard Gardens struck colored stone. What they had hit was part of one of Malta's most exquisite Roman mosaics. Archaeologists, including Sir Temi Zamet, later uncovered a house with a colonnaded peristyle fine marble statues, including one of Emperor Claudius and his daughter, and imported glassware and pottery. The mosaics, made in opus vermiculatum and opus tessellatum, featured detailed patterns and imagery, including the famous drinking doves of Soso's motif. The 11th century transformation. But above these elegant Roman floors lay something very different, a Muslim cemetery dating to the 11th century AD. Excavations revealed 245 burials, each following Islamic customs: right side positioning, southeast orientation, no grave goods. Gravestones bore inscriptions in Kufic and Naskh Arabic scripts. A silver ring inscribed in Kufic was found among the burials. The transformation of the domus from elite residence to sacred burial ground is a vivid example of how spaces in Malta were repurposed as new communities arrived. Part 3. St. Paul's Catacombs. Nearby, the St. Paul's Catacombs spread out in a network of underground chambers. Used from the Punic period through the Roman and Byzantine eras, they became primarily Christian cemeteries by the 4th–8th centuries AD. These catacombs include arched recesses, rock-cut tombs, and even stone tables for agate meals, communal gatherings of the living to honor the dead. Part 4. Other notable sites. Sta Margherita Cemetery. In Rabat, construction in 2004 uncovered a rectangular rock-cut burial chamber with surrounding stone walls and Roman pottery. Its simplicity and lack of grave goods suggest a medieval, possibly Islamic, date. Tarfa. There are scattered references to burials here that may be Islamic in date, though peer-reviewed confirmation remains limited. Closing reflections. When we lay these sites side by side, a remarkable pattern emerges. In Marsa, we have an unbroken chain of funerary and industrial activity from the Roman period to the late Ottoman era. In Rabat, we see the shift from Roman domestic luxury to medieval Islamic sacred space. And across both, we see how burial customs, pagan, Christian, Islamic, reflect the communities that shaped Malta. Every tomb, every inscription, every reused dolium is part of a larger story, one in which Malta is never static, but always absorbing, adapting, and reshaping itself. Thanks for listening, and do not forget to subscribe.